deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time, but you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, it's true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey and I are pleased to present What It Means to Study Yourselves. But before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now, let's get started. It's so good to be here.
Islam.
Assalamu
alaikum. Shalom. Body makem. Wanabot. We want to talk a little bit casually about the study of self. As many of you all have already known, those of you who have been studying, Prophet Noble Ali always presented to the Moors of the Maghreb for us to study ourselves and for us to study as a general rule from an erudite position of scholarship, but more importantly, for us to study ourselves. And he said, when you have studied well and would ask me what to study next, I would reply, study yourselves. And one of the things that we need to look at, we're looking at the physical self, the social self, the spiritual self, or what you call the abstract self. You're looking at the immunal self, and you're looking at the higher self, lower self. So there's many aspects, and Dr. G wanted to share a few of them with you, relative to how we look at ourselves, how we experience, what our experiences are, how we build our character and our ego. Self also refers to the ego, and one of the things that that we're always working to do from a developmental perspective is always paying attention to the ego and making sure that we conquer the ego or control the ego, because the ego is closer to what you'll call the carnal self and the lower self.
You know what? I should have grabbed. Do you mind grabbing the Bible, the
Yes.
Metaphysical, right next to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's something in there, about the ego that would be really good to share. Some of you probably have this, and it gives you a deeper understanding of, some of the things, particularly that are in the Bible that are presented as absolutes, and when they're actually abstracts, or they're actually metaphors or hyperboles or all those different things that they could possibly be, and in some cases downright practical, but because it's presented in such a way, like even down to the title, when we were getting ready to, we were putting this together, up until about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes before I posted.
Yes.
It was I said, study yourself, and I wrote, the study of your, and then self by itself. But that's not what Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, and not what I think, and I'm not sure about you, but what I think he meant. Because some people might look at study yourself means, okay, keep on studying. And folks usually say, to what end? You get
to what conclusion? What are you seeking?
Yeah, what are you seeking?
You know, in other words, anything that is done, there's an action or a determined action, specific or specified action, has a determined goal in general.
Right.
You know, and so when you look at the issues that we've been dealing with, you know, in the Western Hemisphere and on the planet, but particularly with the Western Hemisphere, most of the people were not aware of that we're, as an example, except for a handful of people, most people didn't know that the general social and economic and some of the, you know, what you would call spiritual problems that we have has their root in us being under foreign occupation and not knowing it, and being evolving politically and socially and economically under what you call a veiled system, and therefore not having a clear concept of where we are, why we're in the situations we're in, what got us to where we are, and then also not knowing a lot of our ancient chronology and history actually here in the Western Hemisphere, as it has been covered up, and therefore our concepts of how we look at ourselves are incorrect. And so when we look at a lot of things that we're doing or that we have done, you know, in our lives here, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, for the sake that we had not known the true history, we also evolved with that corruption, both politically, economically, and spiritually. You know, now we're not talking about the soul, because the soul is perfect in the bosom of a fool. If you can't be saved, if you get the whole point. However, the soul spirit or the energy that guides us spiritually from the abstract, you know, is contaminated by our concepts, because man is mind, and we guide ourselves or navigate by the mind. And therefore, when we begin to study ourselves, we're going to find out a lot of things about ourselves, about the individual self, and about the greater self, or the greater body politic, etc., or even our families, etc., that until we study, we may not have had an idea or consciousness of where we should be or how we should guide our lives. And so that's vital for our knowledge. Now, will you share this?
Sure. Well, the reason why I wanted to grab the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is because most of you all know the story the biblical story of narrative of Herod, King Herod, when he heard allegedly that the Christ child had been born. He set out an edict to basically, he was looking for him to kill him, because he knew that this Christ child was going to dethrone him. And so in order to make sure that he, you know, got him, I remember it was slaughter of the innocents, every child 2 years and under. You know the story of Herod, King Herod. But let me just give you a background from the Metaphysical Dictionary, which I learned, you know, maybe about 10 years or so ago, about what Herod stands for metaphysically, not the story that we get. So in the metaphysical, you know, in the physical, we know he was a king, or, you know, a ruler that was, you know, afraid of losing his position to a baby. But under the metaphysical terms, it means Herod means the ruling will of the physical, because we're talking about, you know, the selves. And when we say selves, we're talking about there's a multiple layers of who, or I want to just say, you know,
self bodies,
realm bodies, and they're kind of like
ethereal bodies as well as the
right. So all right, so it says the ruling will of the physical, the ego, in the sense consciousness. Herod stands for consciousness. This ruling ego is temporal because it does not understand man's true spirit, man's true origin, or the law of man's being. It is narrow, jealous, destructive. Under its rule, man does not fulfill the law of his being. And when you say that, when you say it's fulfill the law of his being, most times in each one of our lifetimes, hopefully we learn more and more why we're here. But a lot of times we don't fulfill purpose during an incarnation. So under its rule, man does not fulfill the law of its rule. Man does not fulfill the law of his being, and another ego must supplant the ego of sense.
Yes.
Sense. So, and I'm gonna stop right there because I just wanted to say to you that Herod stands for the ego, which
Yes.
is one part of the selves. Because when we're, we talk about, and it's not in what we actually normally see when you see those. Like, I want to pull something up. You all might be familiar with seeing something like this in terms of, like, say, the chakras and so forth. But here we go. I put some, this picture right here.
Yes.
And this is kind of indicative. As you see the purple, that might be, like, say, like the crown chakra is normally,
Yes.
but that causal body. So it's telling you the blue, which is, our third eye is the celestial body. The light blue is the etheric body. The yellow is interesting, is the I guess that's the mental body, and yellow in the chakra is also the solar plexus, or that first brain.
Yes.
Okay, so that is why it's the mental body, because that brain is in that in that area of the belly. You know how you have a gut feeling.
And even, yes,
right.
That's where the intuitive mind also is.
Right. So the red is indicative of the emotional body.
Yes.
And lastly, what you see indicated with the black is the etheric body. And on the left-hand side, you see the various chakras that are actually aligned with those same areas, from the seventh chakra down to the first chakra. But I wanted to show you that just because I wanted to give you an idea of how the bodies, how ourselves, we're not just what we see. We're not just this flesh and this blood, or we're not just mind. Although, as I study more, Grand Sheik, I begin to see sometimes the possibility that we may be projecting into these realities, but from a singular point. And that gets, that's up for debate and discussion at some other point. But if we are all one, then we must have a central hub from which our oneness projects from. That is the way I feel. But from a standpoint of when the prophet said to study, when you have studied, and I'm not sure,
studied well,
and
when asked me what to study next,
study yourself. Yeah.
Study yourself.
So would you say that he was saying, in a sense, that, okay, you all of the natural things, you're going to deal with food, clothing, shelter, the various obvious things that people, the various subtleness of what they called racism or whatever, privilege, whatever, politics, socialization, religion. But then after all of that,
you have to deal with the real self.
Right.
Now, one of the interesting things too, Dr. G, and we've always talked about this too, and I think many of the listeners could use this as a point of reference for self-study. And, we've said it many times, but I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves. And because of these generations of occupation by a corrupted priesthood, that most of us and very few people have ever really had the real opportunity in their physical form, in the third dimensional form, to really know themselves. Because from childhood, we're groomed from childhood to work for these last couple century or more. And so the educations that have been imposed upon the people were all groomed around the animal husbandry, which we all know about, And so, truth of the matter is, even when we're talking about or sharing our experiences in life with each other, and even when we mate up with people, 9 times out of 10, the majority of anything that we ever even talk about is our schooling, when we got a job, where we worked, when we worked, when we moved to different jobs, when we paid taxes, how we paid taxes, when we got another job, or whether we like our jobs, etc. And in reality, when you think about, most people's lives have been groomed around work, not actually ever even living truthfully, as a matter of fact. And even in the spare time that people have, that we call days off or vacations, you know, those are experiences that we focus on, even artificially, to try to make ourselves enjoy life, or from the hectic part of life. But the reality is, pay attention to what has happened to us. Almost everyone's most of our physical life is molded around labor or service to a corporate entity, and we never look at it that way. So when you look at it again, most people really haven't really had the real time or energy to really connect with nature and with themselves, and to really begin to even know themselves. Very few people.
Yeah, you're right. I was just listening to you talking about work and how what has mostly been centered around, and we talk about days off and and of course, all of a sudden, while somebody's talking, sometimes your brain starts to pick up on subtleties that you may have overlooked before. So we talk about days off. Well, I was all of a sudden I thought about dazing off, dazing off, not days like the day you don't go to work.
DAZE.
Days off.
So,
so when you days off and days, or when you lose track of or focus or purpose or so forth, after we have our week, the week work week, where we're weak, then we get to days off. Right? But we didn't really, well, I can't say that, because some of us have come here, believe it or not, to just enjoy life. Just have a good time and just be, frivolous and so forth. And when you start to, I've been doing a lot of studies of people who have had, near-death experiences.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so a lot about NDEs. And then, of course, my own sister had an NDE. So I'm very familiar. When I hear other people talking about it, I'm always familiar, because my sister and I, have talked over the years. She's, she's now in a nursing facility for a totally different, because she had an aneurysm about 6 years ago. But when she had the NDE, which happened in the late 70s, and she shared with me, it was an incredulous story, but since I've learned from others, the experience she had is almost identical to a lot of others, But when you think in terms of why, people wasting their lives, not doing fulfilling purpose, some people's purpose is to what we would perceive as to waste time, to be lackadaisical. And the reason is because, we don't know
their time now.
Right. But we also don't know, because we're not taught this, the process that the pre-birth planning process that we undergo before we get here, to plan our lives out. We made a decision consciously to be here now. We didn't happen to just fall, out of the, in the stork's mouth and as little pictures. We made a conscious decision to incarnate, whether this was our first incarnation or our 1000th incarnation. But now we're here for a purpose, and so each one needs to figure out what he or she came to do.
Yes.
And realizing that at the end of and we talked about this too, the stage play, because this is theater, right?
Theater.
At the end of the theater, we all get to take a bow, Granshi.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, we get all hyped up and upset about things because the play was set for us to do that. The emotions of the actors are kind of directed by the script and the directors and all of that stuff. And we don't realize that, we might see stuff on TV, but these are the days of our lives that we're playing out. you know?
Absolutely.
And so we don't get a chance, you all, to talk about stuff like this. And Grand Sheik says, you know what, because we know it, he knows it, I'm all into it. And we know most of the time people just want to hear about nationality, birthright.
It's still birthright.
It's still birthright.
Yeah.
But we, but they want to know about how to get out of this or into that. And there's more to it. There's more to it, because whatever I believe, whatever you're doing, you need to do it not only with purpose, but you need to do it with the assurance that, and I'm going to say this because, and not from a scriptural standpoint, but just because I can't figure out anything else to say. Well, yeah, I can. Nothing that has been created is going to destroy you. No system, no fiat, no fake,
Now, right where you are right now, right, and even the study of ourselves, and this is redundant, but I was talking to Sister D this morning,
mm-hmm.
and she's always been looking or going through the Circle 7 Quran, for inspiration and for study and restudy and restudy. And as you're talking, the recognition is chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran. I'll read this because that fills right in, but it also gives you assurance from the principles and the philosophies of our ancient mothers and fathers that the very concept that you're expressing is expressed in chapter 1. I'll share it with you and see how what you see in it, okay, and then also how people respond to it. Excuse me. Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. The genealogy of Jesus, and we already know the metaphors, right? With 18 years of the events, life, works, and teachings in India, Europe, and Africa. These events occurred before he was 30 years of age. These secret lessons are for all those who love Jesus and desire to know about his life, works, and teachings. Dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. They are for good, peace, and happiness for all those that love Jesus. Dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they may learn to love instead of hate. Dear fathers, by these lessons you can set your house in order and your children will learn to love instead of hate. The lessons of this pamphlet are not for sale, but for the sake of humanity. As I am a prophet and a servant is worthy of his hire, you can receive this pamphlet at expense. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world. And when the time appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys and freed these secrets. And for the first time in ages, have these secrets been delivered to the hands of the Muslims of America, etc. All authority and rights of publishing of this pamphlet, 1927, Noble Dry Labor, right? Now, chapter 1 correlates with that study of self,
okay,
or having the established philosophies of our experience here in the ancient script, etc. Now, keep in mind, these are Gnostic principles, not so much religious as the people have been used to being groomed by. Mm-hmm. This is the ancient Gnostic principles. The creation and fall of man. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be, because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body, nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. creative fate gave to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul, gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplast, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore will be, for wisdom speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is the thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time. For things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past unto the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man. But man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that especial plant. So spirit man, as seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. Now, seeds are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they are not unfolded unto life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was foreordained to be the Lord of plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors, the true sensations, and the all of love are manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essences took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yes, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun, and the spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served its purpose well, and it will fall, will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah's leading on and victory is sure. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore. And it will pass, and he will be no more, and it will be no more. And man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and be at one with Allah. That tells you the course.
Okay.
That's the theater.
Yeah, but people, folks get so caught up in the stuff that they think, like I said the other day, measuring in minors.
Mm-hmm.
We do that, and I think that's
Majoring
part of
in minors.
right. But I think that's part of the like I said, it has to be part of the script.
And the
also,
ego.
Yeah, and it's also a part of the distraction, or the challenge. I don't want to call it distraction. The challenge.
Yes.
The challenge, getting focused and get on track. Like for instance, and me, I'm a new creation when it comes to my emotions. But what I want to do, Grand Sheik, and I know you didn't see this. I started some things. I wanted you to see this. So I think it starts from like here. So this particular commenter said this, and some folks have, said some other things, and then they said, then this, and this was a kind of a rebuttal, and this was a rebuttal, and I want to address that because the fact that somebody knows that, see that right there, which is good, but it's the other two that I would love for you to address, because yes, I did create the House of Reawakening Minds from
and we've always worked together.
And yeah, so you're not in, here's a clarity. I didn't want to say it, but you didn't get invited here.
Right.
You're part of this.
Yeah.
So for someone to think
we're part of a team.
We work together. You know what I mean? So you're very misinformed. And I'm not even going to put your stuff up there, but you're very misinformed if you think I invited Grand Sheik, or Taj, as you called him. I didn't invite him.
We're part of the team.
We work together. We have been working together since 2011.
12 years
almost 12. Yeah, almost 12 years. In October, it'll be 12 years. So,
I requested for you to come up and also share and speak, because people need because we need a broader view, meaning that we have to look at the facets of life from different perspectives, from different eyes, even when you have the same idea, because what it does is shares with people who may not be, viewing it, from the north or the south or the east or the west. but you understand the elephant in the room is still the elephant in the room.
Absolutely. And I always spoke in the background.
Yeah.
You know, like the invisible voice, the voice
Yeah.
with no face.
Yeah.
And yes, I can have my own show. Actually,
Mhm.
I do, called Office Hours with Dr. G. You probably don't tune into that one. But if you specifically, you know, are looking to hear from Grand Sheik, then
You know,
pick out the parts.
yeah. Even, when we're looking at this, like, as you already know, the past week I was down at the headquarters
Right.
with Sheik and Dr. Bey, who's been operating ad hoc prime minister to get a lot of work done in the movement, dealing with a lot of the corporate activities that took place with the Moorish Science Temple of America in Chicago, etc. A lot of the dynamics. She did a lot of work in the background to try to correct and clean up a lot of things. And so one of the things that she's been doing, as you already know, is helping the children, with online schooling, to reduce or to counter the operations of the dark priesthood, which have been operating, on our people through the animal husbandry, and even with the concept of even knowing self, because we have not had our own platforms. We have been subject to occupational platforms, which is also why many people, when they're looking at this information, have limited comprehension because they're still not aware. Many people are still not aware that all of us, not even people who are conscious, have been raised under animal husbandry. And I think a lot of times when people look at, the work that we're doing, which is like we're sharing, they may look at it as, our developed opinions absent of their own experience, when actually it involves all of us. It's an awareness of a lot of the damage. One of the things also, this is a little short lesson that myself and the prime minister did relative to the schools for the children, and mainly an outreach to the parents, because many of the parents who send their children, or even consider to send their children to online school for Moorish children, still didn't know the history of the mind control operations coming under the John D. Rockefeller Foundation and the Frederick Taylor Gates Foundation, colluding to set up the animal husbandry training for us to maintain that worker class, that very worker class that we talk about, which is again why many of our people don't know themselves, because we don't even know that our whole lives have been molded for the most part just to work.
The interesting part about being molded and steered, if you will, into a worker class is that where we are today, and all of the buzz is about AI, and what AI is seemingly designed to do is to replace that working class, because the things that were menial, widgets moving, this to that, you can program even more than that. So, but those types of things now are going to a place where you have
it's an
people,
evolutionary part
right,
of our
and
experience.
you have people that I see why a few years ago coding came out, because we need our young people to know how to code and program this stuff, and to deprogram if they need it, if need be.
Yes.
We don't need to be somewhere far, out, back in the dark ages, not having an understanding or overstanding of as technology moves on, as we are still, trained, or our children are still trained, like you said, through using animal husbandry techniques, or now even going so far as to not only miseducate, miss whatever, not provide erudite training, but now to even try to change the minds of the children, their genders, their identification, and all of to be political. All of these things are things.
These are notice that all of these are faux actions, FOE.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this, for instance. And these are some of the notes that are in the book. All right. But animal husbandry, right? Now, this is what you all can take notes And as Dr. G had opened up about studying of self, one of the things that we need to be recognize is that we have been socially engineered. Now, let's not get caught up in the cover argument of race and prejudice. That's a diversion. Animal husbandry, which was used, and that's the truth. This is research fact. We're clear, not analyze opinion. It's research fact. Now, animal husbandry, by application, is a major abstract mental modifier component of amplified social engineering and a vital aspect of worker class socialization training. This is why invoking AHT, which is animal husbandry training, was initially made a mandatory part of education by the administrators of the corporate state franchises. The GEB, which is the General Education Board, was and is a political tool deemed for that purpose. The molding focus is placed upon conditioning children at a very young age or stage of life. Why? Because forced servitude is against natural law, and the targeted subjects are more moldable during early stage life development. Young children have limited defense mechanisms, thus resistance to negative stimuli is minimal. Animal. So here we go. Read and review the meanings of the word animal and husbandry. Analyze the meanings from a mechanical and work operations perspective. Now, absent of emotions, morals, or empathy, apply the same to humans held to servitude. Augment the conclusions as a societal construct function via organized training. Thus, the animal husbandry training manifested as an applied socialization cast tool. Review the philosophy of the members of the General Education Board of 1902, then recognize their motives. See the following. Animal is a multicellular organism of the kingdom Animalia, characterized by a capacity for locomotion, non-photosynthetic metabolism, pronounced response to stimuli, restricted growth, and fixed body structure, relating to the physical nature of people. Husbandria, agriculture, the cultivation of the soil for food, farming in the sense of operating land to raise provisions. So that's animal husbandry. That's the approach. And that's the foundation of the philosophy page of the General Education Board operating under all United States jurisdictions since 1902 and exemplified and reinforced since 1916. And so the General Education Board of 1902 is an institutionalized working class molding operation and it is social engineering operation in missionary character. And you can research the rest, but I just wanted to share that with you. So, because I know here and there we talk about animal husbandry, but I know some of the people didn't have a definitive analysis or definition of animal husbandry as a social engineering tool. And so I just read that section so that you could comprehend the mechanical approach that from a governing perspective that the de facto operators that operate all the corporate states and including the Board of Education subdivisional administrators, this is their agenda. That's their documented agenda. And this is why we've had difficulty with our children and our families. However, pushing that aside, just look at the fundamentals that most from a very child, from the age of a very young child, that we have not known ourselves because we have been engineered against nature, away from ourselves. So not only have we been absent of the ancient Gnostic wisdom philosophies of our ancient mothers and fathers, absent of the history, absent of true science, absent of true mathematics, but absent of an opportunity to really develop harmonic with nature into our real selves. So you can see where a lot of work has to be done beyond just simply an emotional approach to philosophies.
Absolutely. And back to what you were saying about, the fact that, it goes all the way back to one of the earlier popes who flat out said, give me the child for this first 7 years and I'll show you or give you the man. In other words, there's a time in our lives when we are in, like when we're going to sleep, they talk about the different states, beta, theta, delta, and various.
Like you was mentioning earlier about the sleep.
Oh, sleep sheep. But but there's a time developmentally when we are in I'm not sure what state. So it's either theta. It's one of the ones where we are a sponge.
Moldable.
We're moldable. The child, is a sponge, is just open and taking in everything around them so that they can to establish bearings. You got to, again, I'm getting ready to go out the box for a minute, go into the metaphysical. You're coming from, the spirit realm. You're coming from the soulish. You're coming from the place of where the all is, and you're making a decision to, if you will, fall to earth, if you will, in a body, to take on a body, right? And there's a scripture that talks about taking on a body. So we have said, send me, I'll go down there. This is one of the hardest places, as I've learned metaphysically, to incarnate.
Yes,
we can be.
Matter of fact, as it is written in most of the scriptures, a lot of the angels admire us for taking this.
We're taking on.
We be looking up to them, and they're admiring us.
Yes, like. Ooh, child, it's like clutch pearls. But
you choose this,
you go here, and so they're like, we'll hang back, and if we can, if we can throw you a lifeline every now and then, but we ain't going down there. We're not gonna incarnate there. And so, but what we're doing is at that critical stage of one's development, the early parts, and I think it's it's a shorter window now. I don't even know. I think you can. These children,
you can tell.
We were in the store today, you and I don't know if you heard that child screaming, but I was near a child that could not have been any more than maybe 2. I don't think she would have been 3, but she was so demanding, and she was screaming at her mother. And I mean, if you looked at her face, it was like an older person, like, look, I want my way, because I know what I want, even as as a mini me. So when I was growing up, you and I were growing up, we were still, it was a slower developmental stage, but now everything is speeding up, y'all. Everything is happening so fast that, I don't think it takes 7 years to mold a child. I think, when you got under a year olds with cell phones and playing games on computers and so forth.
The stage of our development where we are right
everything now. Is expedited. Everything is ramped up. And so, we really have to realize that something is happening evolutionary. There's an evolutionary change that's happening. And it's not just AI, but even our children who are coming in at,
Now, this is where we need to also know ourselves. And one of the ways of knowing ourselves logically is going back to that state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers. And just as we can see from the circle 7, because remember, much is based on 7.
Mm-hmm.
This is even why the dark priesthood used the number 7, because they're dealing with their knowledge of the laws of nature. And so in other words, they're soul stealing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at the same time, they're also teachers.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, part of our lesson, even dealing with the hybrids, which is a lesson within itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that they're hybrids and then understanding the workings of nature, that hybrid form can't last forever. because nature won't allow it. So even when you analyze that, you have to think this is temporal.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we're suffering and dealing with these things, the indicators when you remove your emotions and deal with it, this is temporal. Because the sun, by nature, is a purifier, and the sun seeks to kill all mutants. And a hybrid is a mutant.
Okay.
And that's not as a negative, if you get the point. That's just simply a real, true biological reality. And so we're a lot of people who really don't understand the intersocial relationships that we've had with the hybrid Romans over the centuries. A lot of it is not so much a hatred of us as it is also a jealousy and an envy, because the sun complements us and the sun seeks to kill them.
Absolutely.
And these are things that we don't think about every day, problems that they have.
And they even have put out the negative false narrative that we would be negatively or adversely affected by the sun, when it's completely the opposite.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, there are sometimes, you have folks looking like us all about, I don't want to get melanomas. We don't normally get melanomas. That's
not from the sun.
So yeah. That's a part of the the disinformation to get you to not be in the sun, which is like your super, it's almost like your superpower activation.
This is what it is. This is what it is for those who comprehend how we work, our connectivity. Through deception, they present as if they can control the narrative, which they have had for quite some time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The deal of it is that we project the thought like a hologram, and we create for them. This is, in other words, they're actually using us to create. This is why when you really comprehend how things work metaphysically, you must take responsibility. And this is also why logically we're not pleased with the conditions that we're in, but you don't sit around being mad or hating the hybrid European, because he's on assignment.
We all are.
Now the deal with is, what's your assignment?
True.
What is your assignment? What are you here for? Now the deal of it is the lesson, meaning that when you look at theater, right? What is presented here is a focused lesson for a group of people, particularly. When people look at us and they say, why is it that we're targeted for miseries on so many levels, right? Then you go look at Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Heliotext, the Bible, Torah, Tanakh, etc. And whether they say, because you already know it's coded, right? Everything basically focuses, and this is where I think a lot of people miscomprehend of thinking that we're special. It'll say, we this particular people that are special to the Creator, that is suffering and is put aside for eventual restoration of the state, and everybody's putting on them. They'll call us different things. They'll call us Saba. They'll call us Jew. They'll call us Hebrew. All these things, and I think a lot of times when people look at that, that they shouldn't look at it with a self-righteous eye. Look at it for that you're targeted for lessons here. Your sojourn here is for lessons. And when you start going back to studying yourselves, you start seeing why the lesson is applied to you. And it's sort of like when you have a comprehension of why certain things take place, even though it may, create pain, misery, it makes it easier because you're not wondering about it. And plus, you have the consciousness to mitigate your consciousness, mm-hmm. and thus your actions, which is why the lessons are there anyway.
Absolutely.
When it really boils down to it. And when you look at chapter 1, creation and fall of man, like you say, there is no failure for the human.
Yeah, so the fall is not a negative. Life And even, I've come to learn.
It's experience.
Yeah, these are experiences that we have as a soul, a spirit, desired to experience for various and sundry purposes, to grow, just to expand, because we are the one that has fractionalized itself into the many.
And look many times he
right.
said what? He said learn in harmony. Because think this way, as we're sharing this information, Dr. G, don't lose your thought. But I just want to adhere this to you. Duality always reminds us we must learn to love instead of hate. Now, put that in perspective, right? Then in reference to our experience here, he says, I trust. He says that the ancient hatreds, he's always talked about the resolution of the ancient hatreds, and that we would overcome them. So we recognize the origins. We need to go back to the origins of a lot of things that brought us to where we are right now, has caused our collective stagnation on many fronts that we find ourselves struggling to overcome, when the real the lesson is to overcome the causal areas, the cause and effect areas, etc.
That's the hardest thing, though. Grand Sheik, to love, particularly when
you're catching hell,
when you feel like you're catching what they described hell as, and it's that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, but we already know what it is.
But what I'm saying is, when you feel that you've been wounded, or you've been offended, or you've been wronged, something has been done. All of us, it's a natural response. Yeah, it's a natural response. However, the hardest thing to do, and when Jesus said allegedly to turn the other cheek, I really don't believe that meant hit me on this side.
But remember, all of those are metaphors,
right? But I do believe and feel that it had something to do with the strength that you exhibit in those times, because you overcome sometimes more by your lack of a response. Or then I had a situation about a year ago. And if it were not for some strong sisters, one of them, Grand Sheik is Prime Minister Daria and Sister Francesca L. at the time, telling me what not to do. Stand, but don't come back at this. And it made all the difference in the world, because my flesh was crawling. My flesh was ready, just like, I've in the past, y'all, been ready to jump out when somebody like the one that was I just blocked. I would be, I calmly just talked about it, but I'm not going to let it bother me, but I'm not going to let you get away with it. I know how to not let you get away with it and still not lose my cool, still not have to, look for any karmic return as a result of my response to your ignorance. And I'm not doing that anymore, because it's a choice. And just like my choice was to come here, and apparently my choice, and probably yours, was to come to be of service to humanity. I am sure, because a lot of times I don't want to do the things that I do, but I know I have to do them. I am compelled. Like there's something in there in me that says you have to do it. And I call love.
You're going to be driven to do it anyway.
Right. And love is a weapon of mass construction. Construction. Hate is the weapon of mass destruction, but it's love, and that's the hardest thing for us to do. Now, is love, when I was in the church, when we talked about the different kinds of love, it's it's the love, the eros love. That's the love between, when a man and a woman want to get erotic. That's where you get the word erotic. But then there was a love called agape, and that agape love was that unconditional love. You may not, I may not, you may not deserve what that forgiveness, or that if you will, balance, and not and that non-response, but I have to do it in that manner, not just for you, but mostly for me. And when we get there, when we can get to that point in our walk, a lot of the things, even some of the stuff that comes across, the comments and stuff, folks would think twice before they said certain things or became combative. I mean, because all you're doing really is fighting yourself. I remember, Grand Sheik, and I'm back to preaching days, but when I was preaching, I preached the sermon, because they always talk about the metaphor of us being the body of Christ. So I was like, okay, so because it was so much crazy crap going on in the church, like it still does today, like it goes outside the church, like we call it the Moors, and we're saying we persecuted Christians, saying they persecute, but they fighting each other. And I said, if we are the body, and if there is a God that sits high and looks low, well, all he's doing, whatever is looking down is seeing it's like this big, huge, giant form, and the hand is chopping its own foot off, and the other hand is plucking out an eye, and then the hand, then it stabs itself.
But
That's
this
what
is what you do to another, you do to
you
yourself.
do to yourself.
But this is back to the oneness, like when he talks about the unity. Now, right back to that. Now I'm going to show you
what is
and share with you. We'll share with you, right? The unity of life.
I've seen this question before.
Right.
Yes.
Now, this is right in harmony also with what you're saying right now, and it's interesting that when we brought up the issue of the study of self, it is very interesting that so many of those lessons that the prophet shared are spot on and absolute, and no matter how like myself and Sister Delilah was talking this morning. No matter how many times you read it, you'll find it's useful over and over again. It never gets old because it is so spot on. So I'm going to share with you all the unity of life. Circle 7 Quran. And I'm going to show you how we've been told. Excuse me just a minute.
Let me see. Let me get back down here.
Go ahead.
Black means pale skin. This is the same thing no.
Yeah.
This is their appellation that they got on here. This was the same question or comment that last time we were on. This individual put this here. Dr. G, I love how you never answered my question. You never answered my questions. You must hate me. Do you remember last time I said I don't ever remember missing your question? But right now I said to that same one, please restate your question so I can answer it. The only thing they put down there was, Dr. G, I love you. They would not put the question. Now they put the same thing up there again. Is this a joke? I mean, well, I don't know. Are you serious? Black means pale skin. Are you trying to? You're trying to? No, I'm not talking about what you call yourself. I'm talking about you. You keep putting the same thing up there. I want to know what your question is that I haven't answered. Please, I will answer you if I can, if I ever see the question, except you saying that I don't answer your question. So please, if you have a question, now is the time to put your question in the comments so you can have your 10 seconds of, well, I already gave it to you. But if you want me to answer your question, please type it instead of saying I'm not answering your questions. I don't answer or respond to a lot of comments, but I don't hate. Right. It's this thing is scrolling. I don't see it. No, I don't hate you. I don't even know who you are, but I will be glad to answer your question if I can. Because some questions I can't answer. You know why? Because I don't know everything. But I'll do the best I can. All right? Don't get great.
Now, chapter 3, circle 7, Quran. Elihu's lessons, the unity of life. Now, just as you were speaking earlier, now notice how harmonic this is. Right? Again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, no man lives unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing.
Absolutely.
Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will love and not demand love in return.
That's that unconditional love.
They will not do to other men what they would not have other men do unto them. There are two selves, the higher self and the lower self. The higher self is human spirit clothed with soul, made in the form of Allah. The lower self, the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of higher self, distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. The lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is Allah in man and will not pass away. The higher self is the embodiment of truth. The lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the higher self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murders, theft, and everything that harms. The higher self is mother of the virtues and the harmonies of life. The lower self is rich in promises, but poor in blessedness and peace. It offers pleasure, joy, and satisfying gain, but gives unrest, misery, and death. It gives men apples that are lovely to the eye and pleasant to the smell. Their cores are full of bitterness and gall. If you would ask me what to study, I would say yourselves. And when you well have studied them, and then would ask me what to study next, I would reply, yourselves. He who knows well his lower self knows the illusions of the world, knows of the things that pass away. And he who knows his higher self knows Allah, knows well all the things that cannot pass away. Thrice blessed is the man who has made purity and love his very own. He has been ransomed from the perils of the lower self and is himself his higher self. Men seek salvation from an evil that they deem a living monster of the netherworld, and they have gods that are but demons in disguise, all powerful yet full of jealousy and hate and lust, whose favors must be bought with costly sacrifice of fruits and of the lives of birds and animals and humankind. And yet these gods possess no ears to hear, no eyes to see, no heart to sympathize, no power to save. This evil is a myth. These gods are made of air, clothed with shadows of a thought. The only devil from which man must be redeemed is self, the lower self. If man would find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. If man would find his savior, he must look within. And when the demon self has been dethroned, the savior love will be exalted to the throne of power. The David of the light is purity, who slays the strong Goliath of the dark and seats the savior love upon the throne.
Now that was chapter.
That was unity of life.
Right. That was chapter three
Chapter
of the
3,
Circle 7 Quran. We would do well to read that because it's very descriptive of, and like I said, we've been taught in these different,
very direct,
right? This external devil, these external angels, God. When
and
it's
this
all,
is where
it's
the
an
priesthood
inside job.
has been feeding on the people, knowing that the people have been groomed under animal husbandry. And this is why you see, when you start doing the research, the different contracts that the priesthood have with the popes of Rome, like the 501c3 that they assumed was one thing and it's really another.
Mm-hmm.
And then the compromise where they can't talk about the realities of the social engineering, i.e. the politics, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you never take it into consideration that these people are metaphysicians.
Absolutely.
And so this is again why you will see when a lot of the real history is revealed, while you have resistance from what you see the priesthood and the so-called organized government. Why? Because they are the foe for you to fight.
Oh wow, yeah.
Once you understand that, you understand why the dedication. If you want to solve any of these social and economic problems, you got to really know what got us to where we are.
Yeah.
And this is back to, as we talked about over the years, Dr. J, why I've always given no quarters to anybody with a title, because I already know they know these lessons. And one of the keys of with the masses, what makes them victim, is because they keep believing that these people don't know these things. Because whether you have the Quran, the Bible, Huasfi, Torah, Tanakh, Talmud, all of these books and all of the ancient texts, they have a common root. And if you get into those books, they will lead you to other information. Now, the one thing that I recognize, and you see a lot of people that deal with any of those books from an organizational perspective, you'll see that 90% of them, after they're into it for a few years, you'll see they'll come to a point of recognizing that these books are anthropomorphic and metaphorical and are not totally literal. And most of them, when their conscience will get them, and they'll step back from it rather than keep promoting the misconception of how people are receiving. Knowing that once you start telling the actual Gnostic meanings of these stories, that the people will reject you because they've been groomed into the anthropomorphic angle, which really has been a tool used by the priesthood to both suppress the people and to drain them of their, as they would say in the Bible, stealing the widow's pennies, which is why they usually respond negatively to anyone that goes into the original Gnostic origins. And like you were saying, the metaphysical Bible, understand that's going back to the Gnostic origins.
Right.
I mean, that's going to the Gnostic origins. Now, and so that's not just an opinion. That's the Coptic Gnostic origin that this book is developed from.
Right.
But you notice that when people are promoting what they call the Bible, they are loath to share this with the people, because at that point they can't get them multi-million-dollar planes and cars and how do you say, every garb that they wear to as they act like peacocks across the stage that costs a couple $1,000 with custom clothes and stuff like that.
Listen, and you know how I feel about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. I was given that download about that stuff. Those robes that everybody, I don't think too many people wear them nowadays, but all those robes we wore and paraded around in were really we were emulating, or we thought we were emulating the priesthood per se in a holy sense, and they were separate, but they were like nuclear power plant workers with their with their protective
even then
their gear on, and we started, like I said, when I gave you the analogy again about the pot, when you don't know the context, then your conclusion is always wrong.
Yeah,
when you don't know why something happened and you just start emulating it,
it's the cause and effect.
Yeah, you're gonna copy it and do it too, but you don't know why the original did.
Now philosophically, now you get into what is called hermetic philosophies. And so the 7 principles of the Hermetic philosophies gives you the fundamental rules. And it's not that the fundamental truths have not been available. If you notice that the masses usually don't get this kind of information, that's all. And so when you go, just like, for instance, like when people are talking about the philosophies and the cultures, they'll always go back to what you call the East, right? And yet, when the knowledge of the East is presented, most of the people being groomed under dogma here in the Western Hemisphere will reject it under the guise of religion, when most of it is really not religion. It's really simply Gnostic philosophies, or what you call maximum laws of life. And the religious dogma systems has been usually what the priesthood have been using to enslave the people. And so what happens whenever they get any of the philosophies, they reject it as religion, and it's not even religion, not the way that they have thought it would be. And so even when you're analyzing this, if you have the the fundamental knowledge of the Hermetic principles, then you would already recognize these things as you see them, because they would automatically be categorized in your mind, and you could easily do what? Purge or separate the wheat from the chaff, or remove the dogma from the Gnostic philosophies, which is the religion.
Right.
Not unlike Dr. G, how people on another of the carnal level, what in the last, say a decade or more, and you see people still working it out, the issue between what money is and what money is not, what is fiat, what's not fiat, even knowing, like, you can give them the actual data, right? And they're still trying to work that out, even after being shown what is and what is not. And so it is also with all the dogma philosophy, the dogma being separated from the Gnostic philosophies.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Is there any proof that Jesus was Gnostic in his teaching?
All right, now, so this is what must be understood. Jesus as a metaphor is actually in yourself. See, and this is back to when you get back to the Gnostic teaching. Like, for instance, they'll give you keys. They'll tell you Jesus, because Jesus is really a password. The name is Yeshua ben Yusuf, or Yeshua,
Son of Joseph.
All right, because whenever you're talking,
Ben means son of.
Yeshua ben Yusuf. So whenever you're looking, so now you're going to the culture. So now you're going to what you call a Moabite Canaanite culture, and then they'll give you keys within the book and tell you his grandmother Ruth was Moabite. So that gives you a key, because it's designed to get you to think. Remember that. And so you know that if Ruth was Moabite and she's Jesus' great grandmother, then you know that he's Moabite. Now you already know. So when you do the research on the Moabites, who are they also refer to? The men with the woolly hair, or the wise men with the woolly hair. These are things attributed to those people, and so they refer to them as the Sufi. Now, people who look at things from the religious point of view, the way they were taught, they were looking at Sufi as a branch or part of Islam, if you get the whole point. But Sufi is really just means the wise men with the woolly hair. And so you're dealing with the ancient Sabians, or the Sabian Moabites. And so when you talk Sabian, so you look S-A, capital S-A-B-I-A-N, and sometimes with an E, right? And so this is where you get the word Saba, and where people talk about keeping the Sabbath. And so logically, if you don't know the philosophy, you can't keep the Sabbath. I mean, but at the same time, you know the general perspective that people have, that when you're Sabian, or then they do the cover up of the word Jew. So now people start trying to be things without doing a deeper research, and because when you do the deeper research, you find out that Jew is non-existent either. It's a cover up of Saba.
Here's a question.
So the real deal is that Jesus is really a metaphor that represents justice, and not the physical man, but actually in yourself.
You speak about the ancient and mystic order of Melchizedek.
Same thing. You're still dealing with the ancient Gnostics. So look up Saba or the Sabian Moors, and you're dealing with the philosophy.
And then, someone is asking, there was one comment about this one, and to Noble Drawley plagiarized this from the Aquarian Gospel by Levi Dowling, but it's still good information.
No.
Let me know. Then there's something else somebody else said. So just one time both together. Asking you to talk about the connection between the Aquarian Gospel and the and the Circle 7.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Here, right in the Circle 7 itself, and this is well for to answer the question, and it's very fair. The question is very fair, and the concepts are incorrect. And I'm going to show you, which I read from the beginning, right? And what Drali always said is that he prepared, that these lessons come from our ancient mothers and fathers. These lessons were tailored, and that's the work that he did. But the work already exists. He tells you, as I read when I entered into this, that these lessons were held back from the ancient ones from of Egypt, India, and Africa, etc. And so you can see it's not plagiarized. And this is, again, where people keep misrepresenting. See that? It says, dear fathers, these lessons you can set your house in order, and your children will learn to love instead of hate. These lessons of this pamphlet are not for sale, but for the sake of humanity. As I'm a prophet and servant is worthy of his hire, you can receive this pamphlet at expense. It means he never charged except for the production of it. It covered the production of it,
and
right?
Basically, yeah, he says that the reason.
Yes. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them from the outside world. He's telling you the source.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what he did, now there's more, and understand also, Levi, also one of the things that the priesthood were doing when Levi was studying, as a matter of fact, that's not the name of the man. That's not his actual name. I just want you all to know that. But he had to smuggle those lessons out because the priesthood were attacking him. And he went into Tibet area, as for those who know that history, and smuggled the lessons out. That became what you know as the Quarian Gospel. They were not his either. Those still are the ancient Moabite Canaanite lessons. They were smuggled out. And that was one of the introductions that is used in most of your Masonic orders to share the Gnostic information for them. But it's the same information, not unlike what Drali is saying right here in Knowing Thyself. So when people talk about the plagiarism, their concept is incorrect.
Yeah, and I don't think you said.
No, I'm just saying because some people have said that, but it's clear he tailored this for us, and he said just that much.
Right, and this is something about. Says I do believe the Messiah actually came in the flesh as a man, not a metaphor.
Both, but you gotta know the history,
right? So
you
Yeshua
now.
Then yeah, but they also history. If you look at other, you'll see that there was a crucifixion of a man, but that man would have been the one we know as Judas Iscariot, as opposed to
once you start going into the history, you'll understand that the story of Yeshua or Jesus, which is our bloodline, truthfully, of the Moabite bloodline, goes back millennia with different names with the same dynamics over and over again, about 13, 14 times. That's a fact. So that's not denied. What is being shared with you is that once you start doing the research, it doesn't dismiss it. What it does, it puts it into perspective of the dynamics of how it's been presented to the people. That's all. It's not denying it. It's presenting it to you that it is redundant over and over again with millennia with us. As a matter of fact, in the future, I'll put a lesson together and show you that history. So so a lot of people, when a lot of the information comes out, they will logically become defensive because they think that you're attacking or dismissing those realities. When the fact of the matter is that the reality in the metaphors have not been presented to the people, have been held back by the priesthood. And these things are not unknown, but keep in mind what they would do is that they would use Yeshua, and you notice that they would never call him Yeshua. They would always say Jesus, because remember that was the code. That was the code word, and they always would use that as a front to generate finance and control over the people, and actually misrepresent in the name of Jesus, if you get the point. And so when you start doing the actual research of the Canaanite, Moabites, etc., and you find out that he was Sabian, right? And also what you would call today Muslim. But at the same time, it's Coptic, what you call Coptic Jew. But it's not a Jew, but it's Coptic Saba. You see, now as you begin to do study, you'll start looking at these layers, how they arrived over the centuries on the people for different priesthood in different orders to control the masses. And logically, when you start going back to the origins or the metaphors, people will get defensive because they think you're trying to dismiss the what you call the physical realities, and that's not what the truth is. The truth is that it's a mixture of actual events in history, and a lot of it's metaphorical. And when you do the research, you will find that to be true, but that does not dismiss the living.
I spelled it like that, but I'm sure that right. But there's also the I too, the IESU.
What?
There's someone who's asking how was the original spelling of the one we call Jesus, but I know it's Yeshua with a Y, but I've also seen it with an I.
Isus.
I.
They say Isus.
Yeah, with an
Yeah,
I.
Isus.
IESUS.
Yes.
And it was almost like saying I Zeus.
So because it is, because that too.
It's
this
Zeus.
Is no, but it is that too.
Yeah.
Now, priesthood, or people who really get into the metaphysics of religion, know these things. But when they share them with people think they're dismissing other parts, and it's not true. What is happening, or what is being introduced, is that you're being shared other information that's totally connected that had been held back from you. So it is the lack of familiarity logically, and I understand that make people feel uncomfortable because they've been given a storyline that's almost entirely metaphoric or anthropomorphic, when the fact of the matter is that all of the ancient stories are layered or multifaceted. They always were, always have been. But what the priesthood don't do, for whatever their causal or reason, is tell that truth, because it makes it complex for people who don't think complex. And they can't control people unless they keep it simple.
Yeah, so they deem a lot of these.
That's why they stay anthropomorphic.
Gnostic.
In other words, the anthropomorphic angle is a chosen angle, but is not the only angle. I repeat, this is what we're sharing with you. The anthropomorphic angle that has been presented to the people about all the prophets, Yeshua, Musa, Muhammad, etc., are all generally to the masses presented from an anthropomorphic angle only to the general masses. But the scholars and the priesthood have both the Gnostic and the anthropomorphic and the metaphoric angles, but many choose not to do it because it doesn't make them finance. Keep in mind, the priesthood is generally have been corrupt. They've been generally in the business of robbing the people and keeping them under the control. That's why they only taught the anthropomorphic. And so when you see people that are dealing with the history and the scriptures from a actual Gnostic background, which is closer to its original background, it's unfamiliar with the masses. It's not an attack on the position that the masses hold. It's just showing you or sharing information that's been held back. That's all.
I want to introduce to you all, this is I have 3 books by these authors. This particular one is called The Jesus Mysteries. Was the original Jesus a pagan god? And one of the things that's in the beginning of this particular book, they also wrote the Laughing Jesus. You know, I always talk about the Laughing Jesus. They show a lot of the different terms that were used for the same deity. You know, you see, you know how we talk about Osiris, or
just like if the people, and this is another thing that you're going to find. Go ahead.
So the more we study this is the authors, the various versions of the myth of Osiris Dionysius, the more it became obvious that the story of Jesus had all the characteristics of this perennial tale, event by event. And these were Christian preachers that woke up and then wrote this.
No, but they already know. Anybody does research find the same thing.
Right. Event by event, we found we were able to construct Jesus' supposed biography from mythic motifs previously relating to Osiris Dionysius. Osiris Dionysius is God made flesh, and the Savior, the Son of God. His father is God, his mother is a mortal virgin. He is born in a cave or humble cowshed on December 25th before 3 shepherds. This is Osiris. He offers his followers the chance to be born again through the rites of baptism. He miraculously turns water into wine in a marriage ceremony. He rides triumphantly into town on a donkey while people were waving palm leaves to honor him. He dies at Easter time as a sacrifice for the sins of the world. After his death, he descends to hell. Then on the 3rd day, he rises from the dead and ascends to heaven in glory. His followers await his return as a judge during the last days, and his death and resurrection are celebrated by a ritual meal of bread and wine, which symbolizes his body and blood. That's Osiris and Dionysius, which predated the biblical narrative.
Yeah, but let's explain this, Dr. J.
Okay.
The priesthood have this information too.
Oh yeah, they know.
But if they teach it, what it does with people who don't have scholarship, it creates confusion. Then they have to justify. Because keep in mind, why do the masses only have a general anthropomorphic view? Because that's what they were taught from childhood. And they thought they were told all of the truth. They weren't told all of the truth. No different than you'll see most of the people that have the different opinions on Jesus, right, will have a Paleolith hybrid on the wall. And that's their image. Because that's what was projected. That's not true. He had hair like lamb's wool because he was Moabite. He was Sufi. All of these things are provable in research. But what it does, it changes the narrative because then Rome can't own the image that they've created of Jesus in the anthropomorphic that they have ruled the world with. And that they have what? Amassed massive amounts of finance, wealth, land, etc.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you know, people knew, if you knew how many professing Catholics have paid billions of penance trying to get their loved ones out of the purgatory that their religious dogma told them that they could buy folks' soul out of purgatory so they won't end up in hell.
Isn't it still human trafficking?
It's
you know, but yet it's not, because they put the holy frame on it. People never dawned that it's human trafficking and extortion. You know, and every once in a while, you know, like you was talking the other day, Dr. G, how even preachers, you know, when they get frustrated and they ain't getting them coins, and then they cuss the people out all the pulpit to shame them into what? Extortion payments.
I've had them preach sermons about me in front of the pulpit. They'll do anything. Yeah.
You know, because the people need to really know, even though this wasn't the intention of our conversation, but it's still knowing the stuff, because you got to study what happened to us. We still got to be real about how we got to where we are. Because, and this is back to, it confuses a lot of people when they're dealing with people that deal with scholarship and they think that they're not religious like they are type thing, when the reality is that they have more of the original information that is not shared with the general masses. And so logically their view on things are more advanced, but yet not popular, if you get the point.
Right. Here's another question. Y'all, listen, put your question in once, maybe twice, but please don't keep putting the same question in over and over again, because it is irritating. All right, I'll get to you. Like this one, I'm ready to put up. Ask Grand Sheik, what is the relationship between Jesus, Yeshua, and His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, and Rastafari?
Same thing when you're dealing with Selassie, you're looking at the last or what you call related bloodline, in that direct order of what you call Hikupta or they call Ethiopia, etc. You're still dealing with bloodline of Sabian Moors, or the woolly-headed ones. Although the bloodline really don't stop there. As many of you people have some of the blood yourself and don't know it. That's the truth.
Mm.
And so they're really referring to Selassie as, one of the last of the bloodline. Because keep in mind, one of the missions of the hybrid Europeans have always been to kill off the bloodline.
Mm. Yeah.
So keep that in mind. That has much to do on why many of you who have woolly hair in the Western Hemisphere are under attack for these many centuries relentlessly, and wonder why, and then think that they don't like your complexion of your skin or your woolly hair. The real deal of it is that their mission has been to kill off the bloodline of Yeshua. And they know that most of you are Moabite, even if you didn't know it.
And so because we're talking about theater,
Mm-hmm.
and because different actors, for lack of a better term, play similar parts, you have to realize that things are cyclical. We've talked about that.
They always are.
Things are cyclical, so you're going to see repeats throughout, the cycles of time. There'll be others that'll come in and do. I once read, and I cannot tell you all where I read it from, but I've known this for maybe about 11, 12 years ago, that at any given time, that there are supposedly nine, if what we would call Christ, when we talk about with the K, with the Christ on incarnated at any given time. Yes. There might be 9 with that Christ, and it really is that enlightenment, that oil.
And this is why it says it's in you,
right?
Even when you look at the philosophies, right, of Yeshua, right, and when the people would play the God or try to put the elevation of Godship on him, he would say, all of you are gods. He's telling you your own fate. He's telling you your own lesson, that he just came to show the way. That's all. And that's to do what? To reassure you that you're in theater, that you're in a evolutionary or developmental stage.
Mm-hmm.
You're just asleep. Or you haven't totally opened up. And this is why many of you, as you begin to evolve, you start recognizing the Christ in yourself. The Christ is an activation of your pineal gland. Now, also, so you want to look at Christos.
Yes, Christos.
Yeah.
And that's where you get, that's like the anointing,
yes.
so-called of the oil. That's where they got the name. Remember back in the day, Crisco oil, the oil, the Christ, the Christ. That's the same thing.
But look at this. Now you're getting into the metaphor of it, it's a part of its original Gnostic meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeshua come in the flesh to manifest that. That's what people need to understand. It's layered. It's dimensional. It's not that one is and the other isn't. It is all operative.
Here's a question. Grand Sheik, what book should we get for the study of our Moabite and Sabian bloodline?
On the immediate, it will not be available to you except in books that would cost finance that you will not be able to garner. However, meaning that it would not be immediately available to you. However, here and there, men and women who know many of these things will release a lot of this information here and there to wake you up. Keep in mind that the missionary work of the priesthood is to keep this away from you. This is an example. That's an example of what we would call revelation.
Mm-hmm.
You will have men and women that you'll recognize because you'll start seeing a pattern as you're seeing today. Men and women bringing it out. Some of it is not totally pure. A lot of it will have to be filtered with you. However, it's all being revealed. Because keep in mind, the very operations of the political system as it operates on the planet Midgard today, the very root of the politics is the suppression of that knowledge.
Can I read the first page of this book for you all?
Yeah.
Just read, and this is written not by one of us. And look, they even have the the flag and love, peace, freedom. Love, peace, true freedom, justice. On the front. What if it says for the preface? I have literally drawn from my previous books where useful and necessary to tell the whole her story instead of history, while greatly debunking history as told by the white European conquerors of the Moors and the Tartarians who lived in peace with each other. For over 50 years, it says Gloria Farley of Heavener, Oklahoma, researched in the field and in the library evidence pre-Columbian natives prior to white man's invasion on natives in what they said they called one America at the time. Her in-depth research has shown the presence of people from blah, 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 from such places as Scandinavia, Egypt, Iberia, and Libya in ancient times and in the central portions of the United States. While much of this evidence consists of writing, also included are hard artifacts. Further evidence Further evidence shows that Atlantis was America in the book Ancient Mystical Oriental Masonry by R. Swinburne Clymer, which reveals that religion and masonry originated in America and not Egypt. Mm-hmm. And this is a quote, we are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids and under the guidance of the kings, the mystic rites of masonry were worked many thousands of years ago. But at the time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same. Exactly. In America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th century, was recovered Egypt and the promised land, or the land of the constellation of the eagle.
Mm-hmm. And that's known by most scholars around the world, but very few people would put it to the books.
And this is written by modern European.
Now, keep in mind too, that whenever, and if you pay attention to anybody that's in the scholarship, say the last 50 years or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're dealing with McRitchie, the Albert European that wrote Beheld a Pale Horse.
Oh, yeah.
And anybody that wrote like that, they would do what? They would target them for neutralization.
William Cooper, there, just back there.
So to say to you, what is the one book? It will not be like that. Let me give you another example. Sister Rashida was a librarian, right? And she was also Sayaraha for Order of the Great Seal, right? And she's a scholar in her own right. Now, she has a small book, a small paperback book on the Civil War, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that book cost, I think, five notes or something like that. You know what it costs for you to get that book now? 3,800 notes. So when it comes to real literature that really helps the people, they always price it out of your reach. So the average person, it's not available to you because you can't afford it. And usually people who have been exposed to this information are usually people that belong to any organization that has what is known as an atom chamber, where some of this information is dispensed, not all of it. And for those who step outside the box and start sharing it with people, usually they're neutralized one way or another. But thing for sure, they're always socially and politically attacked. Know that for surety. However, in your quest for knowledge and upliftment, you're going to have to be sincere in digging and being able to decipher, because the information will be given to you here and there through different men and women who have the courage and the integrity to write and to produce and to release this information. And know at the same time you're going to have heavy opposition with people many who you respect dearly, who you thought that was really out here trying to help the young children, and they care about the education of the children, and they care about the women and everything. And what they're really are parasites. And as you learn more and more of the Gnostic history and information, the more and more you yourself will start dismissing these people. And then nature herself will open up doors and reveal more information to you. Part of our sleep is the fact that we keep supporting people who are really parasitic. So nature is allowing us to be taken advantage of until we start releasing our naivety. One of the great lessons that's taking place with humanity as we speak and accelerating is naivety is being slain. I repeat, the common state of naivety that has been a bane or dead weight on humanity is in the process of being dissolved. And so you're going to see a lot of conflict of opinion. However, once you get into the state of mind of really asking questions just like you ask, guess what? Mother Nature will start delivering to you. If your position is sincere, Mother Nature will come to the rescue. Guaranteed.
I'm going to put this down here. The book that I held up, and some other, they have free PDFs. I put that up there. But I like having, the hard copy of the book. And then the book also comes.
And remember, always try to get hard copy of anything, because one of the things that they do and what they will do, as soon as the people get to a point or an apex point where they start what you would call mentally dismantling the system, they will digitally remove anything that's digital, so you have no reference point. If it's not in your heart and mind, you won't have it. So try to get hard copy.
And if you get this comes with black and white or color. Pay a few extra dollars and get color. It's a lot. It's a lot because it's full of pictures and so forth. And the black and white, you rather have the color maps,
yes,
and all that. So if you get it on Amazon, which is One World, One America, Tartarians and Moors, get the color version. It's a few, maybe about $5 or $6.
Because it's even this is what it's also revealing, Dr. J. Mm-hmm. What it's revealing is the general synopsis of the history prior to the dramatic takeover of the mid 1800s, and that's really and once you have that reference point, it will lead you to other information. But what it will definitely do will kill any naivety that you had prior.
Yeah.
And once you recognize it's also a purging. That's what's happening all across the planet. And as you see, even the responses that are taking place with nation states, it's actually a purging. And when you see these things, these are signs. They let you know that we're actually evolving.
And the truth be told, everybody's talking about, the Fed now and the BRICS and all that stuff, but currency normally has a lifespan, other than gold and silver, not currency. Fiat.
Yeah.
Fiat has a lifespan, and then it's dead. This isn't the first time. So we've lasted longer. They kept it artificially alive. It's on life support, but it's dead outside of,
Now, so this is the reality. So we have to start clearing up. And part of the discomfort that we're going through right now is that the work of the foe of the last 100 and some odd years is being dismantled. As we told you 3 or 4 years ago over the House of Reawakening Minds, when we said that the guardians, the negative priesthood, their gods are being removed. Now, keep in mind, as people have been attached to them, many of the people are defending what they think are God-oriented things, and therefore they have been dragging, for lack of knowledge, of their own redemption and their own liberation. However, this is why you've seen a few years ago when I mentioned about 4 or 5 years ago with the House of Reawakening Minds, and I said, pay attention to Dusha Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're going to have to start having a feedback loop. And those things that I was talking about then are what people are experiencing right now.
Absolutely.
Right now. And so the deal is that's for people who know, they see it anyway. But people who are pretty much under the spell wouldn't see it, if you get the point. Once you kind of see what's going on, what you do is share with people to try to help people, but they themselves actually have to be their own savior. And those who help succor the masses can only share what they see ahead of time, sort of like letting you know the pitfalls that are in the road, so that when you come up to them, you can be aware and make your travel a little more comfortable because you see it and you know it's coming. And so that gives you opportunity to start adjusting your life to reduce the miseries that the priesthood do and will intentionally put on you. And so really that's all prophets are for, is to help you look at the map of life and avoid a lot of the pitfalls. That's all their job is. Nothing more, nothing less. But they have the same sufferings that everyone else does. That's another thing that must be comprehended. But no, once you get on the idea and the mindset of correcting things and making things better for humanity, Mother Nature opens doors that you didn't even know existed. And many of your downloads will be around 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning. Because that's how things work. Mm-hmm. So once you understand and know how things work, it don't surprise you. Just, you're more able to start looking at them objectively and not with mystery minds, if you get the whole point. And then do your part to help.
Yeah. I don't know. They were saying they couldn't see the title of the book, but I guess One World, One America.
One World, One America.
By James W. Lee. If you see it.
And just like Drew Ali said, he said, I'm going to make the European tell you the truth.
And they're doing it. So.
And he also said, the nations have your history. So also keep in mind, you all, and do a little for, just to help you along the way. So start looking up Philippines as an example. You notice how the European hybrids are using the gender wars to talk about passport brothers going to the Philippines to get wives and all that stuff in order to try to degrade mentally the Asiatic woman here, etc., under the black codes. Go do research on the president of Philippines, and what does he tell the people? We're not Filipino, we're Moors. So don't start thinking that you're going with different people. You're simply going with different tribes of your own people. So it's coming out. The world is what the other thing. The reason why I said that is because we need to recognize that a lot of the biases and prejudices that we have accused others of is among us, and we have to purge that. We need to learn to love instead of hate.
That's the biggie. That's the big, but hard for so many.
That's part of studying yourself.
Yeah.
See, because one of the things, this is the other thing that you recognize, Dr. G.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that when a lot of our people in the name of scholarship start doing ancient America, Tartarians, Moors,
Mm-hmm.
and ancient Egypt, Ethiopia, etc. Too many of them, they'll take it. They always take it, not all the time, but they always go into the history with a self-righteous, we're more special than everybody else attitude,
Mm-hmm.
which is not well, because you're not looking at the higher self and lower self, the reason why are we operating from this position, socially, politically, and economically? What caused the fall? Even, like for instance, for some of you who want to know the politics, go look up Hammurabi Bey's Code of Law, which is a lesson in itself. And that'll give you a little bit of knowledge also of your treatment that you get here in the Western Hemisphere.
When they say
Hammurabi's Code of Law.
right? They never say the Bay.
Well, I'm just telling you. They'll say Hammurabi's Code of Law and Aunt Hagar and their relationship to him and his assignment. And you'll see a lot of the attitude that you see coming from the hybrids, and you'll recognize that information, and the response is called, quote unquote, retribution justice. I repeat, retribution justice. And that should ease your mind in a lot of areas. And keep in mind that people in position of scholarship and people belong to secret societies, they have this information. That doesn't mean that every member studies dedicatedly, but it's available. That's why they have secret societies. And what makes them unique is what they're not subject to the emotional belief systems that are used for mind control under animal husbandry to the masses. It doesn't mean they're not influenced by them. It means they are availed certain information that takes them out of that caste system if they want to be. Meaning that people can come into different societies and they come for different reasons. Some people go into the societies to drink and party, and some go into it because it gives them they have opportunities to have comfortable political jobs afforded them separate from the average people out there. However, the fundamental information is right along the lines of what we've been sharing with you all this time. That people think is Moorish information. No, that's human information, human erudition that's been held back from you. And one of the reasons why Dr. G even has this platform and why it's so, open on many subject matters, because it's about succor of the people who have been absent of information that other people have paid thousands of notes for and then take death oaths not to reveal. So we try to share it with people not to make you uncomfortable or not to attack your position, but to enhance your position so that you can have a different view of the world and by choice decide what you want to do with that information.
And Grand Sheik, as we start to wrap up, but we can go over a little bit. But I know we got a lot to do. You have a lot to do. I'm not doing much of anything. You're doing it.
Yeah.
But we just want to make sure that you all that are on the fence, still on the fence about coming.
Yourselves.
Well, not only that, about coming to our event.
Yes.
It's coming up next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's going to be an excellent opportunity I'm just going to put this up. It's an excellent opportunity for us to come together, particularly I'm excited about the strategic planning portion of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where you can bring what you've got to offer and we're going to try to we will come up with a document based on what comes out of the strategic
directives,
right? The strategic plan. A lot of times, folks. A brother texted the other week and said, you and Grand Sheik say all this, that, and the other. Tell me directly how we're. I said, what I can tell you is you should get a ticket and come on the 28th, 29th, and 30th, and be here for that event, and we can work together on solutions. Grand Sheik and I do not have all the answers. We're on
Facilitators more.
Facilitators, and we're doing our part of the assignment. But it takes all of us. It takes all of us working together to actually come up with a path, actualization, a path forward. And so, and we really want you to come out. And there even are going to be a few others that are not listed on here that are going to be at the event. We want to come up with, Grand Sheik, let them know this is going to be a time of those who are there. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to put in the work. You know what I mean? We're going to have a good time, but we're going to be working.
And what I shared with you earlier, I should have more documented information. Probably will be sharing some with you information that will really, really be actually surprising to many of you and unexpected. At the same time, it would make you recognize that your work hasn't been in vain.
Oh yeah. There's some stuff. Some things.
Some really.
And we also have a presentation that's going to be given by our, Council General, Council General,
yes.
On Saturday. So you want to be there. Folks are asking, well, what's up? What's going on? Well, you can still get tickets. If you go to the website, there's a link. Our 2 for $120 tickets instead of $75 for a piece. We never took down the discount. It was supposed to be over on June 30th. No, was it whatever date it was? Is still up, y'all. So if 2 folks want to click on that link, if 1 folks can get 2 tickets for 2, do that. But you want to make your way here, because we really, really, really are serious about this, and we just realize we know we can't do it alone.
Now,
it's not
as
just,
you all
just
remember,
not the 2 of us can't do it by ourselves.
Remember, two classes before. I told them? Remember, I said when we closed out, and you asked me, was I angry?
Oh yeah, I remember.
And I told you. Watch the elements.
Yeah.
You see what happened the very next day and all that week. Now, listen.
I'll tell you what I'm like.
Listen. Once you understand how nature works, and once you understand or reconnect with nature, nature tells you stuff. It's available to all of us. The deal of it is that the earth is responding to our sickness. It is important that we recognize our connection to everything, because if we don't correct things, we literally, a lot of what you see destruction going on is really coming from the mind. Meaning that the people have been injured so much and that they're getting angry, and consciously and unconsciously they're casting negative spells. And what we want to do is succor the people so that we can reduce the injury to others, even though some of those who are guilty of the criminality on the planet, we don't want innocent being hurt by thoughts projected. Are we clear? But when I closed that night is because I responded, because I actually felt an energy come through. And so I actually spoke ad hoc. I wouldn't have said that, but I knew that was coming, but I didn't intend to say that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because a brother that communicated with me, I guess he said about a year ago, called me today and was wondering if I read all the stuff that he sent me. And I apologize if you're watching, and I told you that I hadn't. But he was telling me that some things were done to him, and now ever since a certain period of time, he's been able to affect the weather. And he said, well, you remember when there was the snake went through such and such? He was talking about an earthquake. I did that. I did such and such, and this happened, and I'm listening, and I'm going.
We already know how it works,
right?
But what we want to do,
and that was just today that I got that call.
We want to rein in. See, we want to rein in. because the deal of it is we do have that capacity. This is why, all those who know that we must do what? Fight our own ego and the lower self so that we don't always respond to every stimuli and then create situations that sometimes innocent have to suffer too. We want to start not doing that, if you get the point. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but one of the things that we want to say is that we've been having our Fourth Friday events for the last 3 months, 2-3 months. We start,
yes,
and they have been amazing. You all have come from everywhere. I think the furthest, the last time, last month, the brother came from St. Louis, right? I think that was the furthest, and then we had a Long Island, New York, and some other areas around. But this opportunity to come for those 3 days is just. It's just something that we did it in March when the weather wasn't as great. Of course, now it's hot, but
and it's going to get hotter.
It's going to get hot, but come and listen. We are going to affect change. We are going to, like Grand Sheik said, you can change things with your mind and your intention. One, again, I'm going to preach for those who say the preacher will come out. One could chase 1,000, but two could put 10,000 to flight. So that means when we begin to come together, we multiply. Our efforts are multiplied. They're not added; they're multiplied.
Yeah, we want to do everything with a positive and goodwill intent.
Right. So we need you here. We still have some spaces. Also, we still have a few vendor spots. Grand Sheik. We have a few spots for vendors. That's also, so. Update on the Consul General. He'll be making a presentation on Saturday.
He'll give you updates.
The 29th. He'll tell you.
Keep in mind, we've always had communication and information that we stopped sharing because we were getting negative energies from people who didn't understand or know what's going on and projecting. Plus, we also didn't want them to start shutting down the sites for us communicating with the people dealing with the process.
Right.
Because remember, the priesthood is being dismantled, and they're doing things to people deliberately to try to intimidate the people. And so this is why certain things that we do know that we haven't been talking about.
Yeah. So no, we will not be live streaming. Unfortunately, his presentation.
Because remember, we're going to be more blunt.
We're able to be very
in-house because they can't shut us down then.
Yeah. So, but if we can maybe see if we can get an audio. Well, it will be audio anyway, but we'll see what we can do. But we won't be live streaming, y'all, unfortunately.
The reality of the politics. Let's be real. How many more years do people need to really come to the realization that we're under expurgatorius and prohibitorum, which they call the censoring or the shadow banning? So let's not pretend that we don't know what's going on.
We don't have at this point. Somebody was asking about accommodations. If we can send you maybe some. We recommend it's the Marriott, the downtown Marriott in Wilmington, Delaware, for the best prices. We don't have a special. I don't think Cynthia set up a special. We have to see, but that's where mostly everybody stays. And then there's a couple of others that are reasonable. But if you text me 302-345-0500, which normally pops up on the screen for everything, and ask for hotels, I'll try to send you a list of hotels if you want to come. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to have you there. Love to have you be a part of it. I'm excited about it. So, and Grand Sheik and I and others have been working really hard. We had hoped to have our Airbnb ready, but we're not. So I guess maybe for the next go round, because work is still being done. We're still working on it, and we did not get the support.
I gotta leave and go around.
Yeah, we didn't get the support. We asked y'all to send $1 or something to help us. When I tell you, we have lots of stuff to do, but we didn't get that, and so we're trying our best to do that and still, keep other things going. But we appreciate those of you who have sent support. So I don't want to negate that. But we do this not for your funds. We do this because we are called to do it. And Grand Sheik and Grand Sheik is never a guest. Grand Sheik is just as much a part of House of Reawakening Minds as I am. We are a team. We've been working together, as we said, since 2011. Yeah. And so don't ever think of him as a guest. It's just that, I've been on the other side of the camera. If he requested me to be in front of the camera, which I could have requested myself too, but it's not like that. We talk anyway. So there's no sense in you just hearing my voice from on the other side and not seeing me. He's talking, then I chime in. So now you just see me, and no big deal. But he is he's still Grand Sheik. I bring another perspective, I think. Yeah, I bring more.
Because remember that
male and female.
That creates perspectives. See, the deal is to get people to think. You understand? Mm-hmm. And also, without what you call a challenger position, people don't analyze. We want people to analyze.
Right. So, yeah. So we appreciate you. Hope that, those of you who still want to come will come. Great teaching today. I ordered the One World book too. Great. I hope you got the color version. Much better than the black and white. But I'll be giving away 2 copies of I'll be giving what's that? Which one is that? Those over there. Whatever that. One World, One America. Oh yeah. It'll be One World, One America, and the other one. I will be giving away black and white copies during the event, as well as some other things. Some other giveaways and so forth. So if you're a vendor and you would like to come, we still have a couple of slots for vendors. Hey, reach out. When is y'all? Look, I'm reading it just like it is. When are we coming to Trenton, New Jersey? When you gonna invite us? When you invite us to Trenton? Somebody, we're not gonna just take ourselves to Trenton. If somebody's having events that Grand Sheik or myself can come to, then hey, reach out to us and let us know. And if we can be there, we certainly will. We don't mind coming out and about amongst the people as long as we can do some good. All right. So is that good?
Yep.
You get ready to go. Don't walk away. Okay. Don't walk. I know you do, but I have to take you over there. So anyway, y'all, we do have to go, but we appreciate you all. Thank you. Good to hear from you, Brother Adil. But yes, we hope to see all of you come on out. And here's another thing. We really want you there we do the strategic planning on Saturday. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the area, like we call it I call it the Quad State area. So Delaware, Maryland, PA, and Jersey, because that's all close. New York, Bell 5. If you're close enough to drive for one day on Sunday, let me pop this up. That's not it. On Sunday, that's wrong. That's wrong. Where's the thing? Here we go. The last day, the very last day, we have a different for 25 in advance and 30 at the door. We have the Mind, Body, Spirit Retreat. If you bought a ticket for the 3-day event, then you're already part of this. But if you just want to come for the Mind, Body, Spirit Retreat, which is the last day, where you'll get, we'll have all of this stuff going on, the health stuff, and we'll be able to talk openly about things that are going on with our health and blah, blah, blah. There'll be, demonstrations and, massages and iridology and blah, 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 a whole lot of stuff going on regarding our mind, body, spirit wellness on the last day. If you're close enough to drive and you just want to come for that one day for this, then you want to get that ticket. And there is a link. I think it's on the website. Hopefully Sister LaChris has it on the website. If not, text me and I can send you the link and you can get a ticket for $25 just for Sunday, right? Mm-hmm. So that's our last day. But if you got a ticket for the whole, if you pay $75 or $120 for 2, this is included. This is already included. But if you didn't and you want to see Grand Sheik and myself and some of the others that are going to be there, and you can only make one day, then you want to come for that. And if you're coming for that, bring some comfortable shoes, right? Yep. Because we start the morning off with a brisk and beautiful walk to the Brandywine. And I'm not sure, but Grand Sheik, I'll know for sure, but we might have Brother Elagon who is
Right.
to come on that, because he is a master herbalist and plant
Yes.
identifier and all that. So spoke with him just the other day, so he might be accompanying us on that walk, because
People can take their little bag.
you take your bag. Yeah, we'll have bags for you. If you want to, collect some plants, we don't have any signs in our park that says you can't. So we gonna look. Some places say you can't, but our park doesn't say you can't. So we gonna do it.
Yeah.
We gonna pick. If you want to pick up walnuts or for your walnut tinctures or whatever, or some kind of plant that'll do something, then hopefully you'll be able to do that. It's gonna be brief, but about an hour, and then we'll get started on the actual program. But last time, I had danced so much I couldn't walk on. I couldn't walk because my solar return was that Friday, and so I had danced so much I couldn't walk on Saturday, and I definitely couldn't walk on Sunday. So Grand Sheik, and it was cold, took a crew of about 20 out, and they had a good time. But this time it's gonna be hot, so so come ready to do that and then kick it off.
Do the nature walk.
I mean, I used to do that every Sunday, nature church, and folks used to love it. And as I went live in the woods, so we want to see you, and we thank you for your time and your support and your attention. Like I said, we won't be back on until Grand Sheik. I guess on the first Friday, Grand Sheik will be back, but it'll be a little bit later, because I have something that I have to do that evening that goes till like 8 o'clock, and so we might not come on until 9 o'clock that day. So, but we will come on the first Friday. He will, and I will probably be on Tuesday. But we want to see you next week, July 28th, 29th, and 30th, and I'm going to get Grand Sheik back to where he can do the work that you've been doing for the last couple of days. We appreciate you. All right, let me just get out of here. Thank you so much. As usual, we love you. Peace, peace, peace.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time, but you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.